Hi guys, welcome to another Divi theme video. This is Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtechtips.com. We've got a great one for you today. Last year or a while ago in Divi 4, we created some hover effects and we did a sort of image to text spin in on hover like we've got here. We had a great question. Somebody said, can you do this with Divi 5? And the simple answer is yes, it's actually even a little bit easier. And this is a great little effect to have. It's going to get people's eyeballs on your content pretty quickly if this sort of thing's going on. It will work on tablet and mobile perfectly, but of course they'll have to tap on it to make it happen. So let's show you how it's done. Really easy. I've got this page open here. We're working with the Divi 5 theme. Let's just add another row. I'll throw perhaps 2 columns in my row. And you can use anything you want. Thanks to the new group modules and the ability to add elements to any module, you can build to your heart's desire. And for anybody that doesn't know what I'm talking about, let's perhaps throw in a blurb module. If I roll down a bit, you'll be able to see it. There it is right there. I'll leave everything pretty much as it is. Probably don't want quite as much text as that. But let's use an icon instead of an image, perhaps. Pop on whatever you want there. What I was talking about before, the new elements feature is amazing. If you want to add more elements to your little blurb module, like a button, you can hit that, hit add element. I'm going to hit a button. There we go. And it's actually added it to our blurb module. And to demonstrate that, let's pop everything in the middle. We're in the button at the moment. Obviously, you'd want to put your link in and what you want your button to say. I'm going to leave mine on the default there. But I will pop it into the middle with the alignment. And then let's go back into our little blurb module by just clicking on it or going back via the back arrow up there. And we'll pop everything in the middle here. Do that very easily under design and text. Just pop it in the middle. And just to show you everything's under the umbrella of the blurb module, if I go into the blurb and the content, you'll always find background under content. And we'll throw a color in there. Just throw a black in for argument's sake. You can see that everything's in that blurb module. Perfect. Well, let's make it how we want it. We'll give it a bit of breathing space. Still in the blurb. I'm going to go back to design. We'll close up the text, go down to spacing. Let's perhaps give it 30 pixels all around. Same as Divi 4. Just put the 30 in. It's already got pixels selected over here. Hit the chain, it'll do the opposite side. And let's do the same for left and right. As you can see, it's giving it some breathing room there. Can't really read that too well. Let's just go back up to our text up here and change it from dark to light. There we go. That's much better. And of course, you can do them individually here, change the fonts, the styles, whatever you want to do. That's going to work perfectly for me. Okay, well, we want it to sort of spin in like I had these ones up here. It's not quite doing what I want on the back end here, but if I flip to the front, we want it to do that basically. So where's the image going to go? It's not going to go in the back of the blurb because we're going to actually spin that blurb module. So we're going to put the image in the column that the blurb module is sitting in. So you can either go to the row and go to the column that way, or we're in the blurb. There's the column it's sitting in right there, or just hit the back arrow. It'll take you straight to that column. As I said before, background's always on the content. I'm going to go down to background here. Third tab along is background image. I click on that. Or we can throw in whatever image you want to throw in. Let's throw that pretty woman in. Now, of course, you can't see it because it's behind our little blurb module there. So if I just to demonstrate, if I click on that blur module and take the opacity down, this little variegated slider here, you'll see that image start to bleed through. And there it is, sitting in the background there. But that text over the top's not really going to work. It's just too busy, too much going on. So let's spin it out. If you want a bit of the image to show through when the blur's on top, obviously play with your opacity here. But you want to make sure that that text is very readable. I'm going to leave it on maybe 75% for a bit of fun this time. Okay, now what we want to do is I'm going to flip this thing upside down. We're still in the blurb. I'm going to go over to design and transform. If I roll down a bit, third tab along here is transform rotate. I want to flip it 180 degrees basically, so it's upside down. Or you can just type it in down below if you want to. As you can see, it's got it right there. Fine tune with your little arrows. If you want to make it more dramatic, take it back further. That's going to work for me. So on desktop, it's going to be upside down, but we're going to hide it so they can just see that nice image that's behind it. Then when they hover over it, we go up to here, little desktop icon right here, we left click on it, go down to where it says hover, we can now set a hover state. Well, I want it to be normal way around, which would be a 0 degrees. I click on that, should flip it the other way around. Fantastic. Now the time it takes to get from hover to desktop. And while I'm in here, once you make a hover effect and you go up here and you change it to hover, make sure when you've done what you wanted to do, go back up and change it to desktop. Because I've made a lot of edits before and not realized I've been in hover mode, and those edits will only appear when you hover over it. So it's a thing to remember there. Flip it back to desktop once you're done with your hover state. As I was saying, the time it takes to go from desktop to hover state when they actually hover over it is 300 milliseconds by default with Divi. It's pretty quick, just under a third of a second. I like to slow it down for a bit of drama, and you can do that over here in advanced. We can go down to transitions. There's the default 300 mils. Let's make it 3/4 of a second, maybe 750 milliseconds is selected right there. And I tend to use ease in, ease out of these sort of hover effects. That's what works for me. Perfect. So now it's going to take 3/4 of a second when they hover over it to flip from desktop to hover mode. As you can see, that's a lot more graceful right there. Perfect. But of course, we don't want to see anything initially but the photograph behind. So we can go still in design over here. Make sure you're in design. We can go down to our filters. That's just on top of the transform we used before. I'm going to roll down. I'm looking for one that says opacity. On desktop mode, when the mouse is not on it, I'm going to take that down to 0. So the module will disappear. We just got the nice little image behind it. I'm sure you're ahead of me. Now what we're going to do is go to the hover state and set that filter back to 100% so it's visible when they hover over it. Now again, watch what happens when I flip this back to desktop, and don't forget, flip it back to desktop. That's working perfectly, but when it rotates, we got these little corners flipping out the side there, as you can see. If I let go of that again, that's no good. Couldn't be easier to fix though. What we're going to do, we're going to go back into our column where we put that image just now. Either go back here or just click directly on it. I'm going to go to the advanced. I'm going to go down to visibility this time. Where it says horizontal and vertical overflow down here, I'm going to change those both to hidden. Perfect. Now when we do it, you don't see those corners poking out of the sides because we've hidden that. Anything that pokes out of the side of the column is called overflow, and it's now hidden. Just exactly what we want. And it will work on tablet mode. Well, like I said before, if we go to tablet mode, there it is right there. I know it's not going to work too well in the background, but of course I'll have to tap on it. And again, we go down, well, you can see with those ones up there, we go down. This is what they'll have on a mobile, but of course that effect will work better, obviously, when they tap on it. So let's make sure it's going to work on the front end. We're going to go out and save the draft. We'll preview the changes. And here's that crazy blur thing I did yesterday. And here's the 3. There's the one we've just done. And I hover over it, spinning in, spinning back out again. Spinning in, of course they can go down, they can click the button, do whatever it is you want them to do. Spinning back out again. And it's really easy to duplicate. Once you've got one, you can just go back in there. I tend to do this sort of thing on wireframe mode. If we go over here, little icon up there, wireframe, just click on it, takes us to the back end. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my little module there, pull one of them over. They're both identical at the moment. Obviously, you'd want to go in and change your details on yours. Then, of course, we want to go into this second column here. So as long as we're on the right blurb, we can just go back one. We should be in the column. Remember, our background's always on the content. Number 3, we can throw in whatever crazy image we want to put in there. One thing we want to remember, though, is we want to make sure the overflow is hidden on this column like we did on here. Now, this is really easy to do. I've only got one column to do, but if you duplicated this several times, you had 6 or 7 of them, if you wanted to do them all at once, you could just go into this column. So I'm going to click on the blurb module, make sure I go back to the column that it's sitting in. You can go to your advanced and visibility, where we changed it over here, and we can extend those settings by right-clicking, extend visibility attributes. Another great feature of Divi 5 right here. Just want to extend it to this parent row. Just want to extend it to the columns. Like I say, this is effective when you've got several of these to do. I've just got one. Design attributes, great. And let's specify overflow. Perfect. Now, any other columns that you've created within this parent row or parent section, whatever you select, will now have those same overflow features. Let's flip back to the other side. Should be down there somewhere. There we are right there. And we'll save draft again. We'll re-preview. Roll on down past our blurry chap. There's our two pictures now. Like I say, you'd want to go and change your details and what have you, and the link perhaps for the button, unless they're going to the same place. But that's a really nice little feature. Really easy to do, as you can see. And whoever it was asked that question, yep, you can do this with Divi 5 just as easily, or even easier, because you can extend attributes and things. Great. So there we have it. I hope you've enjoyed this today and found it useful. A lot of discussion going around at the moment about Divi 5. Should I use it on new sites or should I leave it alone? Personally, I'm just using it on a few little personal sites. All my client sites, I'm going to remain on Divi 4, which is functioning perfectly until probably final release or 5.1 when they've tested out any bugs. That'll save me a lot of work and it will save my clients a lot of headaches. But having said that, I am so impressed with what I've seen so far of Divi 5. I can't wait to be using it in productions. It's almost difficult to go back to working on my Divi 4 sites after working with Divi 5 because it's so streamlined. But don't forget, guys, it's still in the beta version. It's going to be released, the final version, soon. So if you encounter any bugs, you're supposed to. That's what happens with the beta version. So once again, this has been Jamie from System22 and webdesignandtaketips.com. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.